Okay, it seems like we've got a nice crowd here to get started. So good evening, everyone, and welcome to In the Adirondack Library. I'm Liz Bellier, Public Programs Manager here at the Adirondack Experience, the museum on Blue Mountain Lake. The Adirondack Experience Library is the largest and most comprehensive repository of books, manuscripts, maps, photographs, and government documents related to Adirondack history. Through this series, we invite you inside the library stacks into the people, places, and spirited conversations that have shaped life in the North Country. In the Adirondack Library runs from October through May, with gatherings on the first Monday of each month. You can find upcoming dates and details about each speaker at theadkx.org. And we are delighted to be continuing our partnership with North Country Public Radio and to welcome back Mitch Teich, station manager at NCPR and host of North Words. Mitch's conversations remind us why the stories of the North Country continue to inspire, challenge, and endure. And tonight, we are pleased to welcome author Jen Denny to discuss her novel, Calculated Risk. Jen is a conservationist, New York State guide, and Adirondack 46er. She grew up in West Seneca, New York, and was first drawn to the Adirondack Mountains as a student at Paul Smith's College, where she graduated in 2015. She later earned her master's in environmental studies and sustainability from Unity College in 2023. Jen currently manages the stewardship program at the Adirondack Watershed Institute and has been involved with the High Peaks Summit Steward Program since 2014, first as an employee and now as a volunteer. She's based in Saranac Lake with her husband and son and spends her free time cross-country skiing, hiking, and kayaking. Her novel, Calculated Risk, introduces us to Samantha Wethersfield, an assistant forest ranger who knows the Adirondack high peaks like the back of her hand. Navigating by map and compass, splinting a broken bone, starting a fire in a rainstorm, these are all second nature to Sam. Yet even the most capable among us can find that life's crossroads are a bit more daunting than the wilderness. In just a moment, I will turn things over to Jen to discuss the book. Mitch will lead tonight's conversation, and of course, we will open the floor to your questions. Please submit questions through the Q&A feature and keep an eye on the chat for helpful links throughout the evening. For now, settle in and enjoy tonight's conversation. And Jen, I'll turn it over to you.
That's great. Thank you, Liz. Thank you for that great summary, too. I really appreciated it. So here I have a little bit to share about my book, Calculated Risk. I'm just going to open up my PowerPoint and switch to, there we go. All right. So the backstory and the really interesting part for me was that this book really grew with me. I started writing it when I was working at Great Camp Sagamore, actually in 2019, and just it was a fun passion project. Then, as the years passed, each winter when I had a little bit of free time, I would go back to it and enjoy filling in some more information about some cool hiking adventures that I had done in my meantime. Of course, assigning all of this information to Samantha Wethersfield, who was my protagonist. So this is a fully fictional story. None of it is about me, but I really did enjoy describing in luxurious detail all of the different places that I had an opportunity to visit while working as a High Peak Summit steward, and then as a guide and throughout some of my travels just on my own in the Adirondacks. For example, here, this lovely picture is taken from Indian Falls on Mount Marcy, looking out towards the McIntyre Range with Algonquin in the center, Wright on the right, and Iroquois on the left. So first, I wanted to mention Liz just did a great job summarizing that. Uh, Basically, the story arc kind of follows Samantha Wethersfield as she tries to navigate some challenges in life. She's 25 years old. She's been working as an assistant forest ranger for 3 years, and she loves it. She's really good at it. But her friends and family are asking her, when are you going to move on to a full-time year-round position? And asking her questions like, don't you want benefits? Don't you want longevity? And she says, well, yeah, I do, but I also kind of love what I do here. So she has to spend some time thinking about that and ultimately pick the right path for her, which involves taking some time to reflect on it and goes to the wilderness, her favorite place, in order to spend that time giving it the thought that it needs. So Sam is a true outdoors woman. She is just I really wanted the opportunity to write a protagonist who is so comfortable out in the woods by herself. We don't have a lot of women like that in fiction. So it was really nice to have the opportunity to write somebody into this story like that. Outdoor adventure is absolutely part of her personality, and she has to use a lot of her skills that she's developed as a forest ranger in order to survive on her own while she's out there in the woods. So she's not only thinking about life's challenges and the crossroads that she's at in life, she literally finds herself at a crossroads out in the Adirondack backcountry. I wanted to tell you a little bit more about the story behind the story here. So, this is the view from Algonquin. This is a view that I've seen 60 or 70 on 60 or 70 different days as a High Peak Summit steward. I've been volunteering with the Summit Steward program for 10 years, I think, possibly 11 now. And two years were spent as a full-time steward. So sometimes I would come up to Algonquin 5 days a week. So this was a really common view. Here we've got uh, the in the foreground, we're looking at some deer's hair sedge covered in ice. So this would have been taken in September or October. So one of my favorite parts to write in the book was about Panther Gorge. It was a destination that I think appears a lot in different discussions about Adirondack, Adirondack folklore and history. I had seen it a lot, but I hadn't personally been there. So in order to write this book, I literally had to go to Panther Gorge. And so I wanted to share a little excerpt with you to describe it. And here, it's from the perspective of Sam when she first shows up at Panther Gorge Lean-To. I arrived down at the Panther Gorge Lean-To earlier than expected. I've been here before, but never stayed the night. In the shadow of Marcy's rugged cliffs and drainages, Panther Gorge is an eerie spot. The sheltered silence makes me feel like a panther could be stalking me here, or perhaps a ghost. Mount Marcy has seen its share of deaths over the years, so it's no surprise that these woods feel haunted. Thick conifers close in tightly around the campsite and block out most of the sunlight. Goosebumps rise on my arms and my heart beats a little faster. I think about picking up and shifting to the feldspar lean-to a few miles away, but quickly dismiss the spirits as figments of my imagination. It's time to start settling in for the night. The lean-to is past its prime, with weathered gray logs and a rough brown shingled roof. As I drop my gear, I notice that several decades of graffiti cover the walls. Bill, Josh, and 2 dozen others carved their names into the south wall alone. My pack leans against a chiseled inscription reading Giardia sucks. I never have and never could deface a lean-to in this way, but a lot of people do. As I lay out my sleeping gear, I wonder how long this structure has been here, and make a mental note to look it up when I get home. It seems a bit smaller than other lean-tos I've been in. While taking in my surroundings, I notice the sound of water gushing over boulders in the background. Good. I won't have to walk far for water, I think, getting out my Nalgene bottle. So, in order to write that, I literally had to go to the Panther Gorge lean-to. And I decided that the time to do that was late April. So, what you are looking at right now is the Panther Gorge lean-to in late April snow, which, of course, was about 4 feet deep still in Panther Gorge. And I had a really, really nice hike in from the south end, Elk Lake, which was kind of new territory for me. So I had a beautiful adventure. The first 8 miles on the way in were pretty good. There wasn't that much snow. But then as I got closer, the snow got deeper. And after crossing some moose tracks and seeing some moose pellets, it turned into kind of a river flowing underneath 4 feet of rotten snow. So I had quite the adventure getting here. But fortunately, the lean-to itself was my destination. So during my adventure, I sat there, ate a lunch, took it all in for a couple minutes, and then, turned around and walked back home. It was about a 23 mile, 24-mile day. It was a great adventure. This is a picture of myself and my husband on the summit of Skylight. And I particularly enjoyed writing about Skylight. It always feels so special every time that I'm up there. If you've been there too, you've probably experienced it yourself. Here, I want to share a little bit of a reading from a section of the book where Samantha gets up to the summit of Skylight herself, and it's also not her first trip up there, but also pretty special. I've been to the summit of Skylight before, but I feel absolute awe while gazing across the sweeping Arctic alpine meadows. The low-lying plants just roll beautifully over the edge of the mountain. It's a special place, and well named. If there's a patch of New York State where heaven's light actually reaches the ground, it's not on Marcy, it's on Skylight. Even though it's a soft October sun, daylight fills the open air around me, highlighting the rugged features of the earth. Panther Gorge, where I came from, might be the only thing still hidden in shadow. Marcy Swamp and Boreas Ponds in the valley below glimmer with otherworldly light. I'm always shattered by the wild, remote beauty of the view. The only thing missing is the tiny, sweet pink flowers of the alpine azaleas that bloom here in early June. I sit down on a little ledge near the summit to admire the scenery. Even without leaves on the trees down in the valley, I can hardly tear my eyes away. I need to pull on my puffy jacket and hat to stay warm, but looking into my bag to find them takes a real force of will. Unfortunately, with today's cold breeze, I can't stay long, even with my coat on. How can I leave this behind? I ask the wind. My voice fades unanswered into the sky's blue. This place isn't just gorgeous because it has mountains and lakes. It's magnificent because of how I'm connected to all of it. I know the names of the peaks surrounding me and have memories associated with many of them. The trees and plant species are all so familiar, I know them immediately on sight, like old friends. How can I leave this behind for a place where I know absolutely nothing? And so Sam has a really great question there that I think anybody who's ever thought about leaving the Adirondacks after living here has asked themselves, is how can I move on? Here, fortunately, I did visit in June the last time I was on the summit of Skylight, so I wanted to show you guys the alpine azaleas. These are the tiny pink flowers that only bloom for a few days in June, and Skylight is it is the only place in the Adirondacks where you can see them. And they're really small. So of course I had to take a selfie with them, and that is where they are. So you can use me for scale to see that they are very, very tiny, and you have to look closely. So one of my main goals with this book was to write something that would be small and easy to put into a backpack. Because I don't know about you guys, but I've literally taken two books from the Harry Potter series with me on backpacking trips, and they do not travel light. So my goal was to give people something for those great trips where they just want to hole up for the night and spend a rainy evening sitting in the lean-to reading. So I hope that I did provide that experience for people. And last, I wanted to say one of my favorite things about the book was talking about Sam's relationships and really weaving that narrative into the Adirondack landscape. I enjoyed creating all of those characters, and I really do hope someday that I'll have the opportunity to continue to write with them because I think that that story is still being told. So now I'm ready for the Q&A.
Well, fortunately, so am I. Jen Denny, thank you so much. And
That's great.
such a pleasure to get to know a little bit more about the book and to have had a chance to read it as well. And I will say, as you promised, it was a fast read, but we feel like we really do get to know Sam through the experience of reading the book. Let me take a step back though, before this book existed, because you're not a native of the Adirondacks, but why maybe how would you describe what the pull of the Adirondacks was for you and why you felt it so strongly that you ended up coming here?
Yeah, so I visited the Adirondacks well, first as a really small child when I was 6 or 7 and I had no idea where my parents took me. But then as later as I was looking into colleges, I decided to go and check out Paul Smith's. My family was visiting the inlet area, and we just swung up to Paul Smith's College, and I checked it out. And of course, we went on a beautiful summer day, so it was hard to decide not to not to go to school there after having seen it. It has a beautiful campus, and I wanted to study environmental science with a focus on nature interpretation. And they do have the Visitor Interpretive Center there. So once all of uh, the scholarships came through, and I found out that it was actually reasonable for me to do that, it was where I absolutely wanted to go. And then my time spent here in the Adirondacks really gave me a sense for the Saranac Lake community. So I really enjoyed not only being on the Paul Smith College campus, but also getting out and going and exploring the high peaks and cross country skiing on the Jackrabbit Trail and going, kayaking and canoeing in the St. Regis canoe area. So I really just grew to love all the opportunities that this area presented, and also the tight knit nature of the friendships that I was building here. It's
It sounds like,
really,
oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I say, when I moved away, there was no place that felt quite like Saranac Lake, so I was happy to be able to come back.
I was just going to say there's something about the shared sort of community ethos that binds the place together. And it also sounds like your parents kind of at an early age really instilled a love for the outdoors in you.
Yeah, they did. We went to Letchworth State Park camping every single year, sometimes multiple times a year if we were lucky. And for me, that was my favorite part of the year. Like, some kids, they look forward to their birthday every year and Christmas every year. And of course, I look forward to those things too, but nothing was quite up there like going to Letchworth.
Um, So when Liz introduced you, she kind of gave us a snapshot of all the things that got you to this point, but none of them was creative writing major or MFA or any of the things that we normally associate with or we often associate with novelists. So walk us through the spark of inspiration that led you to sit down and I don't know whether you typed it or you hand wrote it in the first draft or but what was the spark of inspiration that led to the novel that's in front of us?
Yeah, so ever since I was a teenager, I've really enjoyed creative writing. So there have been this kind of like different parts of my personality where I like doing the outdoorsy stuff, but at the same time, creating creative writing has kind of just always been a hobby. And I kind of found myself rewriting the same story, but in different ways throughout all of my teenage years. And then I finally sat down as an adult with all these experiences in 2019 and started trying to put these characters into a story that I thought could really that would really feel like it was a satisfying way of telling the story that has been in me for all of this time. Um, I was able to use all of those creative writing skills that I'd kind of developed over the years, but it also like had some really great benefits for my professional life. Like sitting down and writing a novel makes you a much faster typer. So, it certainly helped me out work-wise. Um, but yeah, I really just found that I had some free time, wanted to delve into my hobby, and 6 years later, all of a sudden, I felt like it might be a book.
You mentioned it started at while you were working at Grid Camp Sagamore, is that right? Did any
Yeah,
of it come together like actually on the trail?
no. So, interestingly, my first draft was written in my head as I was traveling from Sagamore down to Cortland to recruit for our seasonal staff. I was going to a career fair down there, and I had a lot of miles ahead of me and a long time on the road. And I sort of wrote, I think, some of the later chapters. And I said, I gotta go sit down and put this down. And if anybody's familiar with Great Camp Sagamore, I was the program director there. So I had these really intense summer seasons where I was extremely busy from May to October. And then I would have some downtime between November and April while I was preparing for the next year. And essentially working from home gave me that free space to just kind of for my mind to spend time creating a story for Samantha Weathersfield.
Um, Well, and along those lines, we're getting a couple of questions in the Q&A, and this is my reminder to the many people who have joined us tonight that if you have a question for Jen, feel free to drop it in the Q&A at the bottom of your screen, and we will get to the questions as they come in and as they're relevant to the conversation. And so we had one anonymous attendee who said, "Are you sure it is not autobiographical when it sounds like Sam is as adventurous as you?"
It's not autobiographical. There was something that I always struggled with was making sure that when I was making a decision for Sam as I was writing, that it wasn't necessarily what I would do. That sometimes it was, this is what Sam, this character, would do. But certainly some of my experiences are wound within this, even down to small things like sometimes you know of somebody who might laugh in a certain way or wear their clothes in a certain way, and you find yourself writing that into a character. It's not that that person is the character, but you take things from your life and you have to write what you know. So little bits and pieces of my life are certainly in the book.
Do you feel like at this point with this book sort of behind you or at least done and at the point where you're talking about it, are you kind of mentally compiling? Are you doing character studies on people that you meet now?
Oh no. Oh gosh. No, I don't do that. But the people who are in my life who are on this call will be relieved to know that I'm not doing that. Um, no, but I do find myself mentally thinking about what Samantha Weathersfield would be doing next and kind of fast forwarding 2 or 3 years into her future and thinking about what she would be doing. That is very much like the mental project that's going on now.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing I'm always curious about with people who have sort of, you haven't created a whole world because, you've put Samantha Weathersfield into this world that already exists, but
Mhm.
it sounds like for you, Samantha exists off the page just as strongly as she's represented on the page. If that makes sense. Like you can't imagine her like doing the things that aren't necessarily in the book, but would, go into like someone's life.
Hmm. Yeah, like there always has to be in the character development, and this is coming from somebody who is not a professional writer, except, that I've published a book, but
I think you get to call yourself a professional
I
writer
think
now.
I do now, and I still struggle with that. But anyway, I think that I needed to come up with some backstory to Samantha that wasn't written into the pages, so that then she would have the depth of a real person. So I had to know things about her past that were all fabrications of my memory, and things about her future, about where she might be headed in order to write that into the book. And there was times, I mean, I went through many rewrites. So I found myself digging through that information, trying to sometimes revise to fit what the new version of Sam is. Because as you think about it, from 2019 to 2024, the world changed a lot. So I found myself kind of trying to stick with the times.
Yeah, yeah. Do you feel like is this a coming of age novel in some ways?
It is. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like Sam as a 25-year-old, I mean, she's fully living her life as an adult, but she's still trying to figure out where that leads. And really making tough decisions without a clear next direction for the first time in her life. You know?
Yeah, I definitely, as I was reading this, thought of my own life when I was 25,
Mhm.
and very similarly, I don't know about you when you were 25, but you are an adult, but it's sort of almost a proto-adulthood, where you're still like experiencing the adult things for the first time.
Yeah, I started writing this when I was 24, and at the time I was living with my now husband, and I worked at Great Camp Sagamore as the program director, and felt very settled and comfortable in where I was. I loved living here in the Adirondacks, but at the time, a lot of my friends were going through these changes where they were working seasonal jobs, which happens a lot when you work in environmental science or fisheries and wildlife. It's just naturally a part of the career progression is that you have to jump from one seasonal job to another. And some of them were feeling sort of rootless, like, where will I end up? Like, I want to take this next career step, but also at the same time, I have this long-term relationship that I want to nurture. And I also uh, have these places that I've lived or I would like to live that feel really meaningful to me. So, kind of the existence at this crossroads, I think, is something that's really relevant to a lot of people. And I definitely came up with that based off of hearing a lot of my friends talk about trying to make those decisions at that time of life.
And I don't think this is giving away any spoilers here, but Sam is dealing with, first of all, a big question of where her next job is going to be and whether it's going to be in the Adirondacks, and also what's going to happen to her relationship.
hmm Yeah, and I think, gosh, I don't want to do any spoilers here, but I
Yeah.
think everybody here is telling her to get rid of her boyfriend. Like very early on, you're like, this guy is just weighing you down. But I think that that's the truth of being in that time of life where you're 25 and you're making this tough decision about like, do I want to stay with this person forever? Because that's where this is headed, and do I actually want this?
Adulthood is a long time.
Yes. So very much a coming of age novel. And
Uh,
oh, go ahead.
Oh yeah, no, we've gotten a couple more questions. Two of them seem somewhat related, so I'll ask them both. One is from Maureen, who asks, "Are you planning to write another book?" And one is from Kathy, who says, "Do you have another book in you? If so, what might it be like?"
Yeah, so I really want to write another book that is would be following calculated risk. So I think that I would place Samantha Weathersfield a few years into her future. Um, she will have settled somewhere, and she
We won't give
and
away
I
that spoiler.
I don't want to give that away. But that she will have, achieved some sort of gainful profession, and that there would be a new adventure, a new Adirondack backcountry adventure, regardless of whether she's actually living here at the time or not. That is, this is where the landscape of the book would be set, because I think that a lot of readers want that, and at the same time, I like to write that. So.
Well, and you poured all this effort into creating this character. It would be a shame if she no longer existed after page 177 or whatever.
Yeah, people just want to know what happened to Sam.
As do you, I'm sure.
Oh, I absolutely do. I think about it all the time.
Well, and along those lines, how does the book that's in front of us, or in front of me and you, and hopefully other folks um, on this call, how does this book differ from the version that was running through your head as you drove down to Cortland?
Mm. Yeah, so I wrote the end first. So the second to last chapter, which I love, where Sam finally decides to let her friend Kristen in on some of her challenges. She has this experience of being vulnerable, which is hard for her. And I wrote that, but I originally wrote it from Kristen's perspective, which was weird. I originally had three narrators. I gave Bill, her brother, sections that he narrated. I gave Kristen sections that she narrated. And then, of course, Sam was spattered throughout the book telling her story. I went to the writing festival in Saranac Lake probably 4 years ago now, and I asked them if they would read, if I could take advantage of one of the editor sessions where an editor reads this part of your book and tells you what they think about it. And I got the advice that I should just pick one narrator, and I was like, okay, it's got to be Sam then.
Would have
But
been hard to tell the story without it being Sam as the narrator.
it would have been a vastly different story. So, and along with that, I actually changed the flow of the story a little bit because there was interesting side stories that Bill and Kristen told about themselves that no longer needed to exist.
Mhm.
So, similar to Sam, I know a lot more about Bill and Kristen than the readers do because they originally were narrators as well. But I think that it was ultimately really good advice.
You mentioned that your favorite part to write, the part about Panther Gorge and the time at the lean-to. What was the hardest part for you to write?
Mm, huh. Good question. Good question.
I mean, was there a part that you dreaded, knowing that Sam was at this point and then she still had to get to this point that you dreaded, filling in the gap?
Yeah, I think that one of the hardest parts was actually when when I had gone through the process of removing Bill as a narrator, I really had to go back and rework some of the early chapters. And that was hard for me to do. Like I originally did not include anything about them going boating together on Lake Placid. I had to rewrite that. Sam's drive through town to go pick up some whiskey, that didn't happen originally. So I kind of had to, it was early in the story and it was setting the scene. But I really had to force myself to go back and rewrite those parts because in my mind, the story was already told.
Yeah.
But I needed to go and make sure that I was providing the details that readers needed. So those parts were a little bit harder for me to get to.
I'll jump in. There was a comment from Lane who says, unfortunately, she has to disconnect, but very interesting story, and she is looking forward to reading the book.
That's great. Thank you.
We also had another question from Anthony who references a call that or an event that the ADKX did. They do another version of these with the Albany Public Library, and he mentioned last month's session with on Brother Yusuf and his activities in the Adirondacks. And he's wondering, did you know him at all? Because it sounds like you hold a similar position at the Adirondack Watershed Institute, and also says thank you and he looks forward to reading your book.
Yeah, thank you, Anthony. Thank you for reading my book. And I don't know yet, Brother Yusuf. I'm curious where he works. Uh,
He led trips into the Adirondacks for youth groups over the years.
no, I don't think our paths have crossed. For me, as the assistant director of stewardship at the Adirondack Watershed Institute, largely what I do is manage our really large seasonal workforce. So we have about 115 to 120 seasonal staff at the height of the summer season, and I really oversee the people side of our organization. So right now I'm really deep in recruiting and interviewing. If anybody wants to work for us, please apply. Please. You'd have a great boss.
uh, Pamela asks, building off of what you were talking about, visiting the Saranac Writers Festival,
Mhm.
and your work with the editor there. How did the process of publishing play out for you?
Oh, that's a great question. So actually at the writing festival, I met Beth from High Peaks Publishing. And at the time, I just listened to a presentation, introduced myself at the end, but I kept the name of their organization kind of in the back of my mind, or the name of their publishing house. So then later, I reached a point sometime in maybe 2024, yeah, end of 2024, where I was thinking, gosh, I've taken this book as far as I can myself. Like I had had a couple of friends proofread it, but they weren't professional editors. So I really needed somebody with editing experience. And I reached out to High Peaks Publishing and I asked if they would give it a read. They said, yeah, we'll give it a read and we'll give you our professional opinions on it for $100. I was like, sweet, good deal. I've been looking for somebody with this expertise. So I sent it over to Beth and Tim, and they read it and gave me phenomenal feedback. Both of them read it, and they ultimately gave me huge improvements on the very beginning of the book. They told me to add another chapter. The whole first chapter was something that they told me that I needed. And then they also had me adjust the ending just a little bit to make it a little sweeter. And those two things made me just love them. So um, I decided that I wanted to self-publish. After I had actually reached out to a number of other publishers, but I was getting the same feedback from all of them, which was that they do not accept work from unpublished authors. I was like, how do you get published if nobody accepts work from unpublished authors?
Catch 22.
Yes. But then I realized that the path to that was self-publishing. So, luckily, High Peaks Publishing had a wealth of experience. Beth and Tim are awesome, and they helped me to make a really professional looking book. Uh, it, they gave me they came up with the artwork with a lot of commentary from me. Um, and asked me for various different details, like what kind of font we would want to use and what size book, so that it would suit what I had in mind.
Well,
All
and
in all,
remarkable that you thought about like the size of the book easily fitting into a backpack for an extended hike into the Adirondacks.
yeah, that was important to me. Like I had spent so much time backpacking as a High Peak Summit steward that I kind of knew what kind of size book fits best.
We've got a bunch more questions here. One from Catherine, who asks, does this book help fill a gap in the literature around the Adirondacks that you've read in the past? Did you have a target audience in mind?
Yeah, this was women ages 18 to 35. Like, and more specifically, outdoorsy women. That is who I saw would really just love this book. Not that I'm saying that other people wouldn't enjoy it. Like, I hope that you did, Mitch, even though you don't fit into that demographic. Um, but that is definitely who I thought of.
I have a daughter in the target market, so I hope she vicariously enjoyed it.
I hope so too. Yeah, and like I thought that it kind of fit that literature gap for sure, where I just wanted this like strong outdoorsy female character to go out there and tell us a story about the high peaks.
Yeah.
So I didn't have
Uh,
anything like it. Like I had stories from other places, but in a lot of situations, like if you think of the book Wild by Cheryl Strayed, you get this kind of broken female character that doesn't know how to do the outdoors. And I wanted somebody who was fully competent to go out there and give it their best.
well, and as we learned, even somebody who is fully competent and knows the outdoors can run into trouble in the outdoors.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I mean, even the best of us, like, no matter how many times you go out there in the Adirondack High Peaks, it's important to respect it because it's so easy to make a simple, slight misjudgment that can turn into a bigger problem. So I don't think that Sam is any less of an outdoors woman for the trouble that she came to. But I do think that she learned a little bit from her experience.
Well, and she certainly thinks that she's less of an outdoors woman for the trouble that she came into.
She does. Yeah, it's going to take a little while to rebuild
Yeah.
that confidence.
Yeah. Was it hard for you to write a character who was making occasionally bad choices, knowing that you would have done things differently?
Hindsight is 2020. Like it's tough because yeah, I'm sure if you're somebody who likes to hike in the Adirondacks, you may have had an experience where you set out on a trail and you didn't bring your snowshoes. And then you get halfway to your destination and you realize that there's 4 feet of snow there. And so you're sort of faced with this, do I turn around? Am I going to get in trouble if I keep going? Like kind of decision making. And like that soft skill decision making is really something that we all have to work on building. We don't naturally get born with those hard or with those soft skills. And it's hard to just learn them like you do hard skills. Like you can learn how to use your snowshoes and fill your backpack, but the soft skill decision making is something that you grow into over the course of many trips into the outdoors.
Uh,
And for that, I think a lot of us have to make mistakes along the way in order to do that. So, even though me, hindsight 2020, I'm writing stuff going, this is not what I would have done in this situation. Maybe I would have. You never know.
given a surprise snowstorm, given cold, wet clothes, and yeah, who knows?
Exactly.
Um, Gary Van Riper, who I believe has been a guest on this program before, asks. He writes, happen to be doing research for a story in our Adirondack Kids book series. Do you know how many female rangers there are in the Adirondack Park? And are there many, assistant rangers? And what do you know about the history of women working in the forest ranger field?
Wow, you are asking me for a topic that I wish I knew more about. Um, I don't know. I can't confidently answer those questions. I do know that historically women are underrepresented in those fields, but I also know that here in the Adirondacks, especially my working in the backcountry, I've had the experience of interacting with a lot of female forest rangers and assistant forest rangers. So here we are well represented.
You mentioned that you have worked as a High Peaks Summit steward, and for folks who aren't familiar, what is the work of a summit steward?
Yeah, that's a great question. So High Peak Summit stewards work to protect the Arctic alpine plants that grow on the summits of our highest peaks, like Marcy, Algonquin, Wright, and Cascade. And the plants up there are well adapted to high winds. The winds can blow, over 100 miles an hour. They see hurricane force winds every month of the year. They the plants up there can survive extreme cold temperatures. The average yearly summit temperature is 32 degrees Fahrenheit, and that's the average for the entire year. And the plants up there survive lots of ice and snowpack. However, they are not well adapted to people's feet. So high peak summit stewards work up there on the summits, asking hikers to walk only on the solid rocks, and that helps us to protect the Arctic alpine plants, which are rare, endangered, and really fragile, as I mentioned.
So you basically hoof it up to the summit, and then you're there waiting for people to arrive and just providing education.
Yes, exactly. It's fully an educational role. Summit stewards are not there to enforce the laws like a forest ranger. They're there to provide additional information, though. So if you go up to the summit and you ask the summit steward, "Hey, can you identify that high peak for me?" They will be thrilled to do that. We love doing that. Um, Also, summit stewards participate in alpine ecosystem research. So they do something called Mountain Watch, where they keep track of the different times that plants are blooming and seeding, past bloom, those kinds of things. And also doing photo point monitoring, which involves taking the same pictures of the same sections of the Arctic alpine zone year after year to see how the plant cover is changing. And I've had a lot of experiences with the photo point monitoring because of the years that I was a summit steward. So I really enjoyed participating in that research.
How does your enjoyment of the Adirondacks as either a volunteer steward or just a hiker differ from when you're on the job?
Yeah, for me, when I'm volunteering as a summit steward, there's not a heck of a lot of difference from when I was a full-time paid steward. I still go about things the same way, and follow it, have the same expectations for myself. But it is tough when I'm just a layperson. And my husband's often complaining that I don't need to stop and talk to every hiker when we're just out having fun, because I will pass people on the trail and say, "Hey, how are you guys doing?" And they'll say something like, "Do you know how far it is to here?" And I'll be like, "Yes, in fact, I do." Let's chat about that. Um,
So
so
there's really
I,
no point at which you're just a hiker.
yeah, except occasionally I'm reminding myself that I don't have to deal. Like I see somebody that is doing something wrong, and I'm like, okay, I don't have to correct that. I don't have to worry about what that person's doing right now. I don't have to go have a conversation with them about this. I'm just gonna let them do their thing.
Because we do see the contrast. I mean, it's one of the things that Sam thinks about as she's hiking, the ability to be out in the woods, and her mind is her own. She's not constantly thinking about is she going to have to rescue a hiker with a broken ankle or whatever. She actually has the luxury of being able to be in her own mind.
Yeah, she really looks forward to that freedom at the end of the season to be able to just walk and enjoy without being worried about being interrupted by the crackling radio. And I can definitely relate to that when you are up there on the summit, you're constantly on. Like for me as a summit steward, if I hear footsteps coming up the peak, I immediately look around to see where the person is so that I can go and introduce myself. Whereas if I'm just there quietly on my own, I can enjoy just kind of looking at the view, and the other people are unimportant.
We have a couple of related questions. One from an anonymous attendee who writes, what is your advice for someone who has always wanted to write a book but never feels like they have the time?
Yeah, so honestly, I have the same problem right now because I have a 15-month-old and I wrote this before that. So it is hard to do. My recommendation would be to set aside one of those cold, rainy days and write the things that are already in your head. So if you've spent some time, like while you're out on a road trip, sit down and take what is already in your mind and just put it on a page. Don't worry about the quality, just get it down. Even if it's not the beginning of the story, if it's something in the middle of the story, just write whatever's in the middle of the story. And then from there, I would say don't stop writing when you run out of things to think about. Quit while you still know where you're going. So, for example, if I was, planning on writing about, Sam's ascent of Haystack, I might stop while she's on her way up Haystack, knowing that she's going to go up Haystack. So then I'll have a lot more momentum when I go and sit back down to continue writing later because I already know what my first step is to get back into it. I wrote the second to last chapter first because that was what I was most excited to write about. So it does not have to go in a particular order.
Did you go back and fact check much of the hiking sections of this book?
Everything. Yeah. I had a High Peaks map spread out in front of me the whole time that I was writing so that I could make sure that distances and junctions were accurate and not just going off of my own memories. But there was a few places in here that I went back and revisited as I was writing the book. Panther Gorge being one of them. But I also wanted to go and I also climbed Lower Wolfjaw and did a little bit of that loop over to Marcy as well because that wasn't as familiar to me either. So yeah, I really enjoyed getting to do that rehiking part.
Jumping back to a similar theme to the question about your advice to writers or people who would be writers,
Mhm.
Anthony asks, "Did your college education in any way inspire you to become a writer or to write a book like this? And if not, uh, can a college education or courses be a help in becoming a writer? And also, do you have friends your age who are writing books themselves?"
Well, okay, there's a lot of questions in there.
Yeah.
And I do work for Paul Smith College, so I'll preface this by saying that I think that college education is valuable. But I don't think that there is any specific part of my college education that lended to book writing. I think that me physically being here in the Adirondacks, going to school at Paul Smith's, created the proximity that I needed to the place that I wanted to write about. So it definitely enabled me to create this, or there never would have been a calculated risk. Maybe I would have written about Letchworth State Park, for example, if I had never been introduced to that area. But I don't think that a college education is a necessary part of the recipe to write a book. Um, I do think that you can take classes that'll help, though, if you were to want to. I never took creative writing or English myself in college, though. So, although I did take a lot of like environmental focused classes, such as environmental justice, let's see, contemporary Adirondack writers. So I did get exposed to a lot of things that may have subconsciously found their way into this book without me necessarily knowing that that's where it came from.
You,
The other questions that
oh yeah.
Anthony had were, do I know other people who are my age who are also writing a book? And the answer is no. But a number of people have come to me since I've published this and said, "Hey, I have an idea for a book. How can I make this happen?" So maybe there will be more in the near future.
You mentioned Wild by Cheryl Strayed, and kind of your feeling about how she was really kind of unprepared. I mean, I guess that was part of the point of that book was how unprepared she was. But what are some of the other books out there that you've read that you've either connected with for similar reasons to what attracts you to the outdoors, or had issues with because they don't hit the mark?
Yeah, let me grab. So I've got, hang on, I'll be back in a sec.
That's why it's always good to do an interview in a room where you have lots of books.
Exactly. Yeah, so two that I wanted to pull out. Here's one that's called Girl in the Woods by Aspen Mattis. And it's really similar to Wild by Cheryl Strayed. If you liked that, you'll probably like this. But it's a really similar type of character. Um, I also
Nonfiction as well.
know this yeah, nonfiction.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Nonfiction like Cheryl Strayed.
Yeah, it's a true life coming of age story about
Okay.
herself. And then here is, it's so funny. I love reading fiction, but I pulled out two nonfiction books for you. This one is called Where You'll Find Me, and it's about the last climb of this woman named Kate Matrasova,
Hmm,
and it takes place in New Hampshire's White Mountains.
hmm,
And what I really so the backstory is that Kate Matrasova was a really experienced mountaineer who decided that she was going to climb the presidentials dressed really lightly on a really, really cold day in February. And she basically set off her beacon at a point when she probably knew that she was dying. But the title of the book comes Where You'll Find Me because she probably knew that she was just telling them where she was going to find her body. But the story that goes with this book is where the author kind of breaks down all of the decisions and risks that she was taking that might have come into taking this really experienced outdoors person and putting them into that situation. So it's really a cautionary tale, but I liked it for the discussion on soft skills that surround hiking. So I definitely would recommend these two books to people who liked mine.
Well, and risk finds its way into the subtitle of Where You'll Find Me, and that brings us to the question that you have not addressed, which is why did you choose to call this book Calculated Risk?
Hmm. Yeah, so there was so many risks that Sam takes, but really the important part about it is that all of the risks that she takes are calculated. Like as she heads out to go into the Adirondack backcountry by herself, she fully acknowledges that she's doing this solo, even though she wanted to find a buddy to go with her. Uh, but she makes sure that she packs the right things or what she thinks are the right things, even though she neglected to bring her snowshoes. And she makes sure that she has a formal plan for her hike. She leaves the plan with her boyfriend. She's traveling areas that she knows from before. So her risk, even though it exists, and to other people it might be much riskier, to Sam it's truly calculated. Also, at the same time, I was thinking that a lot of the risks that we take in life, like her deciding that she was going to go on to, consider possibly other careers outside of just being a forest ranger, would be a calculated risk for her. She knows that she has these other passions and where her expertise lies, but it's ultimately a calculated risk.
We had one more question from Anthony, who wanted to know if you've read any of the Anne LaBastille books in the Woodswoman series.
Yes, I often
You look like
credit
you could spot one on your shelf almost.
I literally just looked over to see if there was one sitting there, but they're on my other bookshelf over there. So I have read all four of the Woodswoman books a couple of times. I credit Anne with probably some of the reason why I live here, because those books were so inspirational to me. I read the first one when I was 18 years old and living in this little shack with no running water and no electricity, that was provided housing for my internship at the time. And I could really just relate to Anne in that situation. My only regrets, one of my few regrets, about, not being here earlier, here meaning in the Adirondacks, is that I never had a chance to meet Anne Lava Steel. I moved here in 2012 and she passed in 2011.
Yeah. Um, Gary, who asked the question earlier, said to pass along his thanks and mentioned that he just ordered the book online. And we had a question from Pamela who wanted to know if your book is available for purchase at High Peak Store, Heat Lake Lodge. And I guess this all ties things together in a question about where can one find your book?
Yeah, so my book is available on Amazon. So if you're really struggling to find it, you can find it there. Of course, I encourage everybody to support a local bookstore if you can. So I know that they have it at the Adirondack Experience. Thank you. It's also available in the Saranac Lake area at the Book Nook and the one in Lake Placid. What's that? The Bookstore
Bookstore
Plus.
Plus. Yeah.
And
And
at Paul Smith's College, they have it in the Mercantile. Um,
Pamela
Otherwise,
followed up, by the way. I guess it was a typo that I did not recognize. She meant Heart Lake, which is an ADK property.
as far as I know, they used to have it at Cascade Cross Country Ski Center, which was owned by ADK,
Yeah.
but I don't know if they allowed it to be at Heart Lake.
Yeah.
The last I knew that they only had like, very specific books at Heart Lake. Uh, so I don't know if I made the cut.
People should call and demand it.
Yes, please do.
Just a couple of comments to wrap things up. Kathy writes that she's read all of Anne's books as well. They are life-changing and exquisite. And Kim writes, "Thank you for sharing. It's inspiring to know you started this book at Sagamore. This summer will be my second season at Sagamore. Would love you to come by for the writing workshop."
Hey, that's great. I also think that I would be a really good fit for the women's they have this like women's outdoor weekend. I can't remember exactly what it's called, but it takes place every year in September at Sagamore, and they usually like to pull in some author to talk about their book during campfire time, give a presentation. So I've been trying to get in on that. Yeah,
Well,
it's
hopefully
an
folks are
inspiring
listening. Oh,
thing.
and she follows up, "Yes, they would love you to come."
Great. Let's set it up.
Well, what a satisfying way to end this. That takes us just up to just about 8 o'clock. But I just want to say, Jen Denny, I really enjoyed the book and truly enjoyed the chance to get to chat with you about it. I hope folks take the time to go and find a copy for themselves, and we'll be waiting to find out what Sam's up to next.
Yeah, thank you all so much for attending this presentation. And for those of you who decided to go pick up my book or who already did, thank you so much for supporting it. I really appreciate that it's out there in your hands. I hope you enjoy.
Let's turn we'll turn things back over to Liz Bellier.
Thank you so much. And I have to say, I think this is our first call that has ended with some networking, and I loved it. So that is fantastic. And thank you so much, Jen and Mitch. This has been such a delight. And thank you for everyone who's tuning in from home. We hope you enjoyed the conversation tonight. And if you did, we hope you'll join us next month on Monday, April 6th. We are welcoming Kurt Stager and Dave Fadden, excuse me, to discuss their book, The First Adirondackers, 12,000 Years of Indigenous Peoples in the Adirondack Uplands, an important exploration of the deep and enduring human history of this region. And before then, we hope that you'll join us in person on March 25th for our Taps and Trivia series at War Cannon Spirits in Crown Point, New York. Our Adirondack-themed trivia nights bring history, good company, and just a little bit of friendly rivalry together in different communities across the park. It's free to play, and we would love to see you there. There is much ahead this spring, and we encourage you to visit the80kx.org for the full schedule of programs and events. On behalf of all of us at the Adirondack Experience, I'm Liz Bellier. Thank you for spending your evening with us. From Blue Mountain Lake to wherever you may be watching, we wish you a good night until next time. Thanks, everyone.
Have a great night.